right, well, welcome back once again to the Paid to Talk podcast, where we're paid to talk, but you are not paid to listen. But we're bloody glad that you are. And introducing for season 2, I believe, Lee Hart and myself, Matt Ward. How are you, Lee?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Great to be back. What a journey it's been. What series are we up to now?
Well, I think this is technically series 2, but...
Oh, yes, we've done 1. Okay.
But we didn't really finish series 1. I think contractually we had to come back and do some...
So this has been reabsorbed into series 2, those ones from series 1 that we didn't do?
I think so, yeah. Otherwise, the lawyers were going to get involved and it was going to get a bit ugly. But, hey, it's a whole new setting. We're no longer at the Eco Lodge.
Well, I tell you what, the company's chucking everything at this. They've seen the results from the past series, the success of it, if you like. You got some there or something?
I do, actually. NZME.
A lot of good reviews.
NZME has actually released their H1 results. And, I mean, I don't want us to take all the glory in these results, but it's fair to say that in the press release, Michael Bogsy, as we like to call him, he did place a lot of that uptick on the Paid to Talk
on this
podcast.
Show.
Yeah, I don't want to bog things down into sort of economic chat, but NZME's EBITDA was up 15%. That's around up $62.3 million.
Okay.
I don't think that was all this podcast.
Okay.
Audio division standout.
A lot of that money would have come from us.
From the sponsors of Paid to Talk. Hence why we're in this fancy new studio.
Yep. Well, there you go. Well, I don't want to dwell on the past too much, but we're going to move forward.
Just a quote here, actually.
Yeah, sure, from Bogsy.
Probably read before we move forward, just to pump our own tyres up. We had high expectations for audio, said CEO Michael Boggs, but the commercial response to Paid to Talk has exceeded anything we modelled. It's authentic, it's unpredictable, and clearly it moves markets.
Yeah, well, there you go. That sounds very corporate speak, because I remember when he first heard the show, after the second or third show, before the results have actually come in, I remember all he said was, "What the hell is this shit?"
Yeah, God, that shit.
Yeah, and that's interesting. It's amazing how he's changed his mind purely because of the economic, the money, the revenue that's been brought into the company.
Hey, money talks, Lee.
It certainly does.
And
look, we're not about the money, though. We're about the listeners, giving them...
Well, a little bit about money. We are paid to talk.
Oh, more on that shortly, by the way. We were going to change the name of the show, this series, to Intelligentsia. Intelligentsia. We're going to make the show a little bit more intelligent than last year. I mean, no offense to the listeners, but
is that a word? Is it
Intelligentsia? It's intelligentsia.
Do you pronounce the G or is it a silent G?
Well, it depends what language you're in. But what I'm saying is, it's for people. I just want to make the show a little bit for people. If you don't know what intelligentsia means, you probably should be on a show called Intelligentsia or Intelligentsia.
What language is it in? Do you pronounce the G?
It's a different way of saying intelligence, an intelligent show. We've got the elections coming up this year. Mm-hmm. I want to be ready for that and give our spin on that kind of stuff. It'd be fair to say that a lot of the listeners last year weren't that bright. They were kind of and we dumbed the show down for them, for their sake. I don't regret doing that. I mean, I still hope they listen to us. Mm-hmm. But a lot of them are morons, you know what I mean? So this year I want to keep them, but bring in a more discerning intelligentsia and the intelligentsia of the listeners out there. They're out there.
Yeah, and that is part of the strategy that we had with having a bit of a break. I think it was exactly 3 months break. Is that part of the intelligentsia? The glasses?
That will be part of the look, yeah.
Okay, yeah. It wasn't burnout, as many people thought that you might have burnt out, Lee. It was a strategic break to reset, get out of the Eco Lodge. It did get a little bit awkward because, of course, you do share the Eco Lodge sort of shared custody with your ex-wife.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. I mean, we talked about the success of the show financially and that. My ex-wife wanted half that. Obviously, and we'd already had a financial marriage separation, but I don't see why she should be taking half the podcast revenue when this is years after you've broken up, just because she's still half owner of the Eco Lodge. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I mean, we've only just got Bogsy on side with this podcast, and if we go up to him and say, hey, Lee Hart's ex-wife wants half this EBITDA profit.
Yeah, it just complicates it. It makes us sound unprofessional, to be honest with you. It really does. Just on that note, we're going to stick with Paid to Talk for a number of reasons. Main reason, of course, because we are paid to talk. Mm-hmm. And we need to remind listeners of that, because a lot of listeners, some of the early reviews were, what is this crap, if you know what I mean? But we could say, hey, paid to talk, at least we're getting paid. What's your excuse for listening to it? Makes them look pretty stupid, right? And also, Matt, secondly, probably most importantly, when our invoices go into the head office there, the people that pay the invoices, it says Lee Hart, Matt Ward, paid to talk. they're reminded that we are actually paid for this, and they don't waste time on the invoices like they do with a lot of the other podcasts. Though they take months and months to pay a lot of those. But so our invoices go to the top of the pile.
And it helps at the end of the financial year as well with the IRD sort of. Well,
Yeah, it does.
where did that money come from? Oh, that was when you were paid to talk.
Yeah, you were paid to talk.
On the podcast. And you're right, we did have some idiots listening to the podcast towards the end of last year, and I hope that they do stick around. But I was actually listening back to one of the episodes towards the end of last year, and we did drag it through the gutter a little bit. For starters, we had that episode in Britomart with Jeremy Corbett.
Yeah, it wasn't our best work.
In the disabled toilets, and it didn't sound good. Didn't smell good either. And then I think one of the final episodes you were talking about how your father used to think you were a full-blown retard.
Yeah, look, there was, if I could go back in time, I probably wouldn't release some of those podcasts last year. And this is what this year is all about. We've got a second chance to sort of make amends and see if we did a lot of learnings from last year that we can take forward. Into this year, let's let's something we can learn from that, and what's the word in English? Evolve and move forward with it, if you know what I mean. Yeah,
I'm with you. Well, I'll tell you what, the listeners didn't actually forget about us, because we actually got a surprising amount, an unexpected volume of correspondence while we had our 3-month break from the podcast. Got a few messages here. Would you care for me to delve into some of these?
I'd love to hear them, man.
I mean, we've got examples of people who had improved sleep while they weren't listening to the podcast, career clarity, relationship improvements. If we go to a few of these messages here that we received, this one from Michael R., who's 41,
yes,
from Tauranga. He said, I'll be honest, without the podcast, I started going to bed earlier and waking up fresher. I was more present with my kids. My wife said I seemed calmer and was a more affectionate lover.
That's with or without the podcast?
Without the podcast.
Okay, that's good stuff.
Yeah. But there was also this underlying feeling something was missing, like I wasn't operating at full capacity. So, Michael, welcome back. I'm sure the family life's probably going to take a bit of a dip now, but hey, at least the podcast.
Well, it's all about getting a balance, isn't it? And that's it. And this show hopefully will give balance. And what we all notice about this year, of course, and a big feature of podcasts. I was doing some research over the break, and it's amazing. Guests. A lot of podcasts seem to have guests. Big names, not so big names, but they have a guest. We didn't always have a guest last year, but this year, I'll tell you what, it's all different. We're going to be having a lot of guests. To be honest with you, would have been, to make that point, hammer it home, would have been quite good to have a guest for the first show, I admit that. And clearly we don't. But going forward, we'll be having a lot of guests.
Well, it's going to be easy to get guests on as well, I think, now that we're in the big NZME building rather than the Eco
Driving
Lodge.
all the way up north there.
You're trying to sell it to a guest to come on a podcast at an Eco Lodge with a dicky septic tank. I mean, it's a bit of a tough sell.
Yeah. And they've got to get an Uber back and that kind of stuff.
And we don't cover that Uber.
No, we don't. But just on the guest front, though, and this is just a message to the listeners out there who obviously listen to podcasts and stuff and listen to our one as well. Look, you probably don't realise how much it complicates it getting a guest on a podcast. At the moment, you and I are talking into microphones. Okay, you get another guest, you got to get a third microphone. You need 3 microphones then. And, I don't have to bring the technical people in on this to tell you how much more complicated it is back there when you got 3 microphones, okay? You get 2 guests, you got 4 microphones. Mixing all that, cutting between them, it's not easy stuff. So we don't take it lightly. We will be having guests when it's worth it. But the technical challenges, I suppose, of having a guest sometimes outweigh that guest, especially if the guest is average, which many of our guests last year were.
Most of them.
Yeah, and let's be honest, we can't be responsible for the quality of the guest. No. And if we have a bad show, we can't blame the guest every week.
No. But we did last year with the ones that we did have on with...
well, some of our better shows had guests on them. What I'm saying is it's an unknown for us when a guest comes in. It's like someone joining a band, you're not familiar with them, they're adding all this random opinions and content and stuff that you're not prepared for.
Let alone the logistics of having 4 sturdy microphones on a trestle table. I mean, if you're doing a podcast with 2 guests and that trestle table collapses, you're going to look like an idiot.
Yep, exactly right. And it's hard enough to get 1 guest on a show, the timings, let alone 2 in this country. Hey, and most of the guests have been on every other bloody podcast anyway. So who wants to hear from them?
Exactly.
Anyway, that's my opinion. I tell you what, hold that thought that you probably had, and we'll be back after this little break. Bloody good start, mate. Bloody good start. You haven't lost a beat at all.
I know. I thought we'd be a little bit shaky, but
Yeah.
this is good.
Maybe after the break we can talk about my fitness and stuff. Cool.
You're what?
Well, I've sort of lost weight and fitness and all that. You bring it up, it sounds less obvious.
You've lost weight?
Yeah, if you bring it up, it'd be less obvious.
Okay.
Just segue into it somehow.
Yeah,
Cool,
okay.
thanks, mate. Awesome.
Welcome back to Paid to Talk with Lee Hart and Matt Ward. We're paid to talk, but you're not paid to listen. But we're bloody glad you are.
We certainly are.
Lee, I've got to say, have you lost a bit of weight? You've been working out a little bit?
Well, nice you to notice, mate. Well, not really. I've just
like
been
that subtle. I can just tell.
Yeah, look, I've just been trying to be a bit healthier this year. Watching what I eat and that sort of stuff. You're not getting any younger,
No, that's for damn sure.
That kind of stuff. I still like to party and stuff, but just trying that kind of stuff. And it's no excuses nowadays. You got all the gear. I mean, I've got a new Apple Watch, as you can see there.
Oh, right. I thought you meant when you sort of party, you got all the gear. But the gear, you mean your...
Oh, yeah, no, I'm just talking about the fitness and stuff. You got your gyms.
Because I do hear that some people get on the gear and they lose quite a bit of weight.
Oh, different kind of weight, though.
Right.
Different kind of weight. And some brain cells, too. There you go. Notification. Drink water. Stand up. It says all sorts of stuff, so it tells you what to do. You can set this for your fitness, for your cardio levels, how many calories you burn, your heart rate, that kind of thing. So
Does the Apple Watch override the podcast? Will you start standing up and drinking water during the...
No, I can put it on pause during the podcast, of course, professional. But you know what I mean? So if you're a walker, you'd put in a workout walking. If you're a skier, if you're boxing, I put boxing in there, and it will measure those sort of calories, like a Fitbit type thing. It's quite incredible. Even sex, you can log in on that kind of thing. Even sex and stuff. So all your calories. So you go for a walk, that kind of stuff. And
you can log in and log it as sex.
Yeah, it's got your sleep patterns. You can put your sexual activity in there as well.
Okay.
Which is a little bit weird, to be honest with you.
How does that? Have you used that? Have you used that feature yet?
Yeah, I have, but it can be a bit distracting, with you and your partner initially, I suppose, with notifications coming through, because you're still getting texts and emails and stuff.
You don't really want it dinging while you...
Yeah, and also a notification might come in saying, hey, stand up. Well,
sometimes that can help. It gives you ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Or different sexual positions can come through on that. Or a notification come in and have a glass of water at a weird time. Imagine that.
Well, you got to stay hydrated.
Yeah, exactly. So you really want to control those notifications when you've got it set to make you love, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But probably the weirdest part for me, and well, not just for me, actually, probably my partner, is, you try to set a romantic scene. You got the, in my case, you had pedals all through the bedroom and candles. I like candles, that kind of thing. But you walk into the bedroom with an Apple Watch around your penis. You've got an Apple Watch around your penis. She's certainly going to notice that. And it's probably going to kill the mood quite a lot anyway, even before you get to that stage, regardless of what kind of readings it's getting,
Sorry, it's on your penis.
Well, it was. I've since learnt that you don't
I don't think you're supposed to do that, are you?
No, you don't have to put it on your penis. You can actually put it on your hand, just the same as when you're going for a run. Like, put it this way, when I go for a run, you don't put your Apple Watch in your shoe, do you?
No.
So I should have thought this through. Naturally, if you're making love, you don't need to put the Apple Watch on your penis. So, but it doesn't come with instructions. It tells you how to charge it and stuff, but it doesn't tell you all that kind of detail.
Right, yeah. They're not the more intuitive stuff.
No, but look, hey, how else do you learn, kind of thing?
Exactly. Well, the hard way, clearly.
Yeah. The worst thing for me probably with the watch, because you finished, well, and I don't do that anymore, but I remove it from making love, from there and put it on my watch. I've got to adjust the strap all the time as well.
Right, you've got to loosen it up a bit, get it back on your wrist.
No. I normally have to tighten it, but it's as I say, you haven't got one, have you? Apple Watch?
No.
You should look into it, mate. You should look into it. It's fantastic. Love to hear what the listeners think of Apple Watch and that type of technology for fitness. I think you can get too obsessive with it. You can be checking your heart rate every 30 seconds. You can be checking your sleep. How well did I sleep last night? But it's not about that. It should be a tool.
Does it tell you how long you lasted when you were making love?
Yep.
Can you delete that?
You can, but it's best to keep those scores,
Yeah.
as I call them,
Right.
as a database, so you can have a graph and can see if you're getting better or worse.
Right. Got
Because otherwise, you're just going to discard that information.
that monthly.
And preferably, you're getting better.
Okay.
And you can build on it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, hold that thought, for the love of God. I think this seems like a really good time to have a break. We'll
Another
be
one?
back right after this. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Welcome back to Paid to Talk with Lee Hart and Matt Ward, episode 1 of season 2, or a continuation of the contractual obligation to finish season 1 potentially.
Seems so long ago, doesn't it? Series 1, when it all began, you called it pilot season, I suppose. Learned so much in that time. Shows back, bigger and better, grander. Research.
Absolute cash cow, as Michael Boggs, the CEO of NZME, calls it.
Cash cow, yeah.
Yeah. And in that past few months...
Juggernaut, I think is what he said. Cash cow juggernaut is his words, but carry on.
Okay. We did have a lot of feedback over those 3 months, people wondering where we are, and a lot of messages sent in. And you can send your messages in as well to the iHeartRadio app. There's a little microphone button when you search Paid to Talk.
Or you can follow me on Instagram, yourself on Instagram.
Yeah, I'll tell you what.
I'm Lee Hart NZ. We might be able to put that down there, and that way you can ask questions. You can ask questions that we might be able to address on next week's show.
I'm Matty Ward, NZ. It's good that we established that we're in NZ.
Yep.
For all those international listeners out there. But hey, we've got some more feedback here. Someone else texted in, Claire M. Is 35 from Christchurch, and said, during the break I started to listen to more structured educational podcasts.
Okay.
Interesting. They were useful, but I found myself missing the unpredictability. They gave me information, but they didn't give me confidence.
Yes.
I guess that's what.
Well, just to give her some confidence, this year it's going to be slightly more structured as well. So the best of both worlds. You're going to get your unpredictability this year on the podcast, but a little bit more structure. And I mentioned earlier, guests.
Yeah, well, we're going to get plenty of guests. I think we've got Wayne Brown lined up for the next episode.
Yeah, he'll be coming up at some stage. Be good to really drill him on what's going on on a big city. Yeah. Really peg him down. And that'll build up nicely towards the end of the year. I don't want to jump too far ahead of ourselves. We will be doing an election special, and Paid to Talk will be the place where you come to for everything you need to know about the elections, which way you're going to vote, why, how, and when. And we'll be able to tell you all that and get some top political guests on there to give you insight and all that stuff.
So we're going to get all the politicians on,
yes.
dig deep and drill down.
Yeah, we won't be going easy on them either. There'll be no softball questions on Paid to Talk. That's fucking for sure.
Fuck yeah.
Any other questions? Any feedback?
Yeah, sorry. We'll move right on to a bit more feedback. Here we go. Sandra Kay from Hamilton. She's 52. I'm not sure why they keep sending in their ages, but it's good to know. My husband started exercising more while the podcast was off air, going for walks, eating better. Since hearing it's coming back, he's stopped most of that and seems much more settled in himself again. So,
well, I'll tell you what, he could do with an Apple Watch because while he's doing his fitness, you can get a notification that says Paid to Talk's just dropped the new episode, and you can be on your walk or having sex or whatever you're doing, whatever you're monitoring at the time, and you can listen to the podcast while you're doing it, or just save it for later. If you're making love, I'd suggest saving it for later.
And now you know, Sandra, or your husband, or both, if you're listening at the moment, that you can leave that Apple Watch right there on your wrist.
Almost sounds like I'm doing a plug for Apple Watches. I'm not. I mean, there's other sort of watches that do this kind of thing. It's just the one I happen to have. Oops, sorry, I've got to get a glass of water. Sorry, mate, you just carry on.
So that's overriding the whole podcast, getting that glass of water. Rightio. Well, you're serious about that? It's good. How's that? Ben T from Perth, originally from Henderson, said that he tried replacing. How's that feeling? Hydrated?
Well, the Apple Watch says do it. You got to do it.
Does it tell you when to have sex as well?
You can have that setting. You can have that setting.
Is the glass of water a sign that there's sort of getting you to pre-hydrate?
No. That I've set that for every 7 minutes.
Every 7 minutes?
Yeah.
So we're probably going to have to factor some toilet breaks into this.
Well, that's it. I end up urinating every 5 minutes. So it's not an ideal thing during the podcast. I need to maybe adjust those settings, which you can do. I mean, if you've got a podcast on that day, you'd probably change your settings. You take the sex setting off, you take that sort of stuff, and maybe type in podcast.
I know it's a big flash studio, but do we need is there some sort of catheter scenario that you need sort of built into the studio?
I don't think it'd be necessary. Once I get my head around the watch, Matt, I'll know these things.
Well, I'm pretty sure Mike Hosking obviously talked back. You can't really go to the toilet, and apparently he's got a catheter.
Well, one of the best things that's got on here actually is the stopwatch. So I can tell how long we've been talking, but more importantly, how much longer we need to go. And it's amazing how this is dragging. But it's...
Which I was going to say, what seems to drag more, when you're timing lovemaking or when you're timing this podcast?
Well, I tell you, the podcast certainly drags on more than the lovemaking.
Not that I want to be associated whatsoever with your lovemaking. Let's make that clear from the get go.
Well, there's a fine line between doing a podcast with someone and making love to them, if you know what I mean. You know, not in the sense of, in the biblical sense of doing it, but the intimacy involved. You need to know that person. Preferably, it's better if you know them.
Well, I'm certainly glad you didn't walk into the studio with an Apple Watch strapped to your penis.
Well, that's it. I mean, if it was a couple of weeks ago, maybe I would have. But as I say, I'm learning this sort of stuff, and you can go online on YouTube, and they'll tell you all the little, hacks and stuff for you.
You can actually watch YouTube videos on your Apple Watch.
You can do that, yeah. Not if they're in your penis.
Strapped.
No. I don't know if you could see it down there, but that's, put it this way. You got to lose weight if you can't watch YouTube on your penis.
Quotable quote.
That came out wrong. You know what I mean, though. If you can't see enough of your penis and you happen to have an Apple Watch strapped to it for some reason, which I did, but I'm not saying most people would. Well, just say to get your notifications. Put it that way.
I've got a bit of a
compass on it as well. Yeah,
got a bit of a because a lot of things have happened in the past few months.
Yes,
Lee. So I thought we'd just do a quick fire, name a few things, rattle them off, and get your opinion on things. Just mainly to get away from your Apple Watch and being strapped to your penis. But so I'm just going to throw things at you. Don't really think about it. Just sort of give us your straight answer. You ready to go?
Yep.
Okay. Should the All Blacks have a foreign coach?
No.
Who should the All Blacks have as a coach?
I'd like to do this. It's always this big name. He's had international experience. He's had this. He's that. Who's going to bring with them? Is he going to bring Tony Brown? Who's going to be the defensive line, defensive coach? I mean, all these people. I would be going to, say, West Coast Rugby Club, the third division kind of thing, and getting the crustiest old man and bush shirt kind of thing. Wellies, old school changing room guy, just goes in, gives them a real rack up. The players know what they're doing on the field. Let them do that and let him just say, get out there and tear it up, guys. Old school stuff.
Yeah, look, the 5 words or less would have been good. This is a quick fire round, Lee, but I appreciate your thoughts on that. Is Auckland getting better or more expensive?
Well, it's getting more expensive and it's certainly not getting better.
Should tipping be rejected immediately when the FBOS machine swivels around?
Swivels round, how do you mean?
Well, it swivels around sometimes.
Yes, it should be rejected.
Should New Zealand ban social media for under 16s?
Yes, and for over 60s.
Should Prince Andrew be removed, the artist formerly known as Prince Andrew, be removed from the line of succession?
Yes, he should. Yes, and probably removed from a lot of other things too.
Certainly not those registries, though. Yeah. Making love lights on or lights off?
Well, there's a light on your Apple Watch. So I would say lights off is fine because you get the best of both worlds, but preferably dimmed.
Okay.
You don't want full on lights like as in in supermarket kind of lighting, but or studio lighting, but dimmed.
Can you strap it around your head, kind of like a headlamp?
I think you could, or maybe just put it on the pillow, or like I said, back to the beginning of the conversation, the Apple Sports Watch, if it was strapped to your penis, you shouldn't have any problem finding your way around. But that's not. You got to remember, all lovemaking isn't like that. Actually, a lot of this stuff would have been really good for Morgan Penn, the sexologist. Perhaps we can get her on in a later episode. It's one of the biggest episodes last year. We could get her back on maybe this year, and I can talk about. We'll move on from the Apple Watch. I don't think I'd bring that up in front of you.
I'm sure she'd have a few thoughts on
Well, maybe just a broader sense, like bringing aids and electronic sort of stuff into the bedroom, yay or nay. I don't think I'd embarrass myself by saying I wore an Apple Watch on my penis. I mean, I don't think that's going to help anyone.
Well, for those who listened to the episode in series 1 of Paid to Talk, would have heard that she gave us a couple of gifts, and one of them was the heat-seeking arse torpedo.
Yes. That's
a good question for the lightning round. Actually, have you used the heat-seeking arse torpedo yet?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Oh, you did say it was short answers.
Okay. And do you feature on the Epstein list?
No.
No. That's good. I did a search and Lee Hart didn't appear. Although there were a few emails that started, "G'day, mate." But
yeah, that could be anyone.
That could be anyone.
That could be anyone.
All right, that was the lightning round. Good to get your thoughts on those. And if
might be redacted. G'day, redacted. Hey, you know what I mean? The part might be redacted.
I'd certainly redact it.
Yeah, I'd redact it. That's great. That's a new feature, is it? We're gonna do that every week.
What? Check the Epstein list?
No. Do the quick fire question round. Next week I could do it to you.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
It sounds
different questions, of course, because you've been prepared for these. These will be quick fire ones that I come up with that you won't be expecting.
Exactly. And if you want to send your own questions in, perhaps make sure you jump on the iHeartRadio app, search Page to Talk, and fire them through. Or
great initiative too for our guest. Just say you had your Wayne Browns, these kind of people on the show. A quick fire round would be great.
Yeah, no, exactly. Especially, digging deep, delving into those.
Did you come up with that concept? Did you?
The fire round, yeah,
the quick fire round, yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, others have called it a quick fire round, but lightning round, yeah.
Yep, no, that's good.
Basically,
great stuff.
Basically, my concept.
Yeah, well, this podcast is making itself. Really, that's what I love about it.
Exactly.
You can come in here. I mean, a lot of people don't really understand how much work and research and stuff goes into a podcast.
I actually have no idea for maybe this is one for next week's episode with Wayne Brown being in politics, but to get the voter turnout in an election year, it must be coming up end of October is the election, and
yes.
Young people, you got to get you get these local elections, no one votes, so I think it's happened overseas. Internationally, it's worked quite well, but when you come into the voting booth and you put your tick. Encouraging people to do tick picks. So basically, you come into the voting booth, you tick for whoever it is, you take a selfie, take a photo, and then you can upload that to social media. And
saying who you voted for.
Basically, yeah, or encouraging in general.
Okay.
Other people to.
A lot of people wouldn't want to admit who they voted for, though.
Well, it doesn't have to be of the tick. You can be alluding to the tick. You can blur out the tick.
Okay, I see. Just to show that you've been in there.
Just to show that you've got your your tick there.
You had a great time in the booth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly. But it's potentially one way to get young people out voting.
Yeah,
because they're easily distracted, and social media is where they are.
Well, social media is where it is, and next thing, of course, they'll be probably voting online, which as Trump says, can be problematic. Who knows? But as you say, probably questions best left for our political specials later in the year. Which the election, of course, November the 7th, I think. November the 7th will be the election. We'll be building up that, of course, a couple of weeks, giving you a sense of the momentum, bringing some key guests on there.
Well, I remember when we, I think it was the 2017 election, we were doing no sleep till polling, and we actually had I think we had Jacinda Ardern join us twice on the show. And a lot of people have factored that Labor win in that election down to a couple of interviews.
Do we want to take credit for that now? I mean, this is the thing, you see, politics is...
positive or negative, however you see it, there was a sway there. Yeah,
what you're trying to say, I suppose, is that we had a lot of influence, probably more than we realised.
Mm-hmm.
And with that kind of power, I suppose, Matt, comes responsibility. So you can be rest assured. Yeah. So, look, New Zealand will be impartial. And both sides will get a decent say, or both will have hardly any say, but it'll be even, if you know what I mean. It'll be impartial.
Exactly. It'll be we'll dig deep and we won't hold back. The gloves will be off, but we'll be consistent between the politicians. Except for the shit ones, I guess.
Yes. So, of course, we'll be doing the big special, the election special, mid-year. Any thoughts there on what we could be doing?
Probably treading water just like this, I'd say.
Yeah.
And then just sort of slowly build up to those election specials. Although no, it's a World Cup next year.
Well, that was another possible name for the show, wasn't it? Treading Water.
Yeah.
A lot of that. I mean, I quite like that. Yeah. I'm getting back to Pay to Talk with the invoicing. Again, it's nice to bring that up early. You'd be pleased to hear this because we get invoiced, and we get paid, of course, like that. What I've done now, running with the Chuck Berry model. With these guys here, powers that be. So what he used to do at his gigs, because he used to get ripped off all the time, he used to say he was getting paid $10,000 US for a show. Back then it was quite a lot. He would show up to the venue, he would go backstage, meet the manager, and get $15,000 up front in cash in a suitcase first, right? Then he would go out and perform. If all the equipment worked properly and the backup band that they had to hire from him was half decent, he'd give $5,000 back at the end of the show. So he never lost. Same with us. So what I'm doing now, I charge double for what we'd normally charge for a podcast.
Nice.
And then if all the microphones work, the table works, and everything goes to plan, the guest shows up, this kind of stuff, we give that half back again. So we can't lose.
See, I'm just interpreting that as if you pour your glass of water over that microphone, we get 50% extra.
Yeah, but they'll see through that. I think the key is that. Look, I mean, there's all this technical stuff. These cameras here, hear that? That means it's working. You see? Tap yours. There you go. It's working. There it goes.
So what you're
if
saying
it wasn't working, we wouldn't give the money back because we look like idiots.
Right. Okay.
That's why it's called Pay to Talk.
So we can't just trash this joint and get paid double?
No.
Okay.
No. So there you go. That's just another thing I've been thinking about over the holidays. I wasn't really thinking about content and stuff like that, just thinking how we could invoice better.
How we can squeeze NZME.
Yeah, but the better we're paid and more frequently, the better the show will be.
Exactly. I agree. Oh, well, on that note, I think that was a pretty solid first episode back.
It certainly was, mate. Look, I'll take this away. I won't say I'll listen to it or anything, but I'll certainly have some thoughts, and you probably will as well. Don't think I'd change too much with that. Certainly not.
I've noticed we've got about 3 producers furiously editing this one, and they reckon they're going to chop it down to about 5 minutes.
I just don't really know how much editing it needs, to be honest. As I say,
somehow they always manage to squeeze half an hour into 5 minutes, though.
Yeah. Well, sometimes they stretch 5 minutes into half. I was just wondering whether we talk quite fast. I mean, if we're doing a half-hour podcast, would it make more sense to do it as we have, but at 15 minutes, just slow it down half speed? So it would be lower voices and slower, but you'd get the same content stretched out to the half hour.
I think at that stage we'd sound like idiots, though, wouldn't we?
Well, if you go too far with it, if you try to stretch it to an hour, you sound like a moron.
Yeah. Because some people in this building argue that we sound like idiots in real time.
Yeah, especially if you've had a few beers too, they can go, oh yeah. Yeah, they don't realise that it's because the podcast has slowed down that you sound drunk. But especially if you've had a few beers and then they slow down, you sound really wasted. So I think the point is we don't need to do that because we've got content galore. That's for sure. That's for sure.
That is for sure. All right. Well, I think on that note, we can wrap things up for episode 1. We're going to be back next week. We've got a special guest, Lee.
Yeah, I certainly have, mate. Certainly have.
Oh.
Certainly have. I don't want to give it away, but perhaps closer to the day on socials, you can find out and see who that guest is and have a few questions. As you mentioned earlier, Lee Hart NZ on Insta. Matt Ward NZ Insta.
Matty Ward with a Y.
Matty Ward NZ. There you go.
And find out who the special guest is next week. If you didn't catch us mentioning him about 4 or 5 times during this episode.
Brilliant stuff. Any feedback about this first episode? Just keep it to yourself for now because we've got a lot going on.
Yeah, quite sensitive. Okay. All right. Thanks, mate.